My friends, it was while you were sleeping that the capital drew a giant commercial target on Brazil's back, and polished diplomatic rhetoric was summarily discarded. Pay attention, because we're no longer discussing fluctuating trade tariffs or temporary currency fluctuations. We are talking about the fundamental right to speak, to exist, and to operate in the digital world without prior approval from a bureaucrat, without prior approval from Lula. The United States has just classified Brasilia's new maneuver not as a simple internal regulatory policy, but as an absolute, direct, and non-negotiable declaration of war against American big tech companies. Would you survive today without access to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, without access to WhatsApp? Yeah, my friends, that's what's at risk. Diplomatic arrogance is already being paid for with force and interest in the marketplace.
No balcão do comércio internacional.
That's right. We're talking about a geopolitical scenario where Brazil was crushed by a punitive surcharge of 37.5 imposed relentlessly by Washington. A devastating sanction designed to destroy our global competitiveness, paralyze our exports, and suffocate the national economy. The response from the Planalto Palace was not a strategic retreat or the opening of a good faith negotiation channel, but rather doubling down on cyber authoritarianism. Through a simple and brutal stroke of the pen, by decree, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, the little South American dictator, signed a provisional measure that officially establishes the engineering of silence in the country. The Brazilian National Congress, which should be society's shield, finds itself anesthetized and fractured, and it still hasn't taken a single substantial step to overturn this totalitarian maneuver. Why is it that Hugo Mota, why is it that Davi Alcolumbre sit on these issues and don't address the demands of the Brazilian people? Why is that? Answer in the comments. And here lies the macabre and cowardly magic of the national legal system. A provisional measure has immediate and unquestionable force of law. It doesn't wait for debates, it takes effect now, choking the life out of social media in real time. And its 6-month validity period expires with surgical precision right after the end of the presidential elections. Why exactly now? Because absolute algorithmic and preventive control of social networks is the thumb on the scale for the upcoming election. The ultimate tool to decide who can be heard and who should be erased from public life. Can you imagine Shimon Oliveira bringing his daily bombshells during the election period, exposing the left, exposing Lula, exposing the communists day and night on the internet? That puts Lula in a panic, my friends. And when the government expands the reach of CADE, the Administrative Council for Economic Defense, using the obscure parameters of the dormant Bill 4675. It does not protect the free market or shield users from anti-competitive practices. It is creating a legal guillotine designed to silence any platform that does not follow the official guidelines dictated by the state. Now close your eyes for a second and imagine election day. You take your phone, record a blatant irregularity at your polling station, type out a message reporting the crime, and hit send. But the screen freezes. The platform's server, terrified by million-dollar preventive fines and threats of being banned from the country, which could bankrupt the company in Brazil. Within hours, it takes down your post before it even sees the light of day. There is no prior warning, no judge signing a substantiated injunction, no sacred right to a defense or due process. There is only a cowardly algorithm, programmed out of fear of state retaliation, carrying out prior censorship in a cold and automated way. They don't feel hunger, they don't feel pain, they don't feel fear, they only do the math. You are gagged, blind, and isolated in your own country, reduced to a passive spectator of your own ruin. You are living again through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s when only Rede Globo dictated what was true in the country. This is the exact anatomy of the legal vacuum created by Brasilia, a sophisticated maneuver that turns global tech giants into mere outsourced censors for a government that is terrified of the voice of its own people. The siege from Washington began to tighten in immediate response to this digital guillotine. If you thought you would be abandoned, hold on. That's not quite the case. It's a retaliatory move. It came straight from the heart of the American legislative branch. A heavyweight group of Republican congressmen, led by the influential figures Adam Smith from Nebraska and Jim Jordan from Ohio, filed a scathing letter late this past Thursday afternoon. Jim Jordan is not just any congressman. He leads the Judiciary Committee, holding investigative power that makes the establishment tremble. This letter was not headed to the useless Human Rights Council. Not the useless Human Rights Council, but rather Jameson Greer, the relentless head of the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. Yes, my friends, the very same man who masterminded and triggered it. The punitive Section 301 tariff hike, stacking a 25% tax plus another 12.5% against Brazilian products under the accusation of unfair trade practices. The American document does not mention unfairness. The dialogue does not suggest caution and does not offer concessions. It demands immediate, surgical, and suffocating economic retaliation. The congressman openly accused Lula's proposal of being a poorly disguised carbon copy of the European Digital Market Act, specifically designed to burden, target, and discriminate against successful American digital platforms. Brazil's Speaker of the House, Hugo Mota, tried to delay the plenary vote due to strong opposition from right-wing parties and the Centro, but faced retaliation. The presidential provisional measure simply ran over the democratic process, imposing the rule by decree by brute force. The strategists in Washington understood the game perfectly. The Brazilian judiciary and executive branches merged into a single, colossal, and unquestionable regulatory arm. Lula's presidential signature just legalizes what is already normal and applies on an industrial scale the arbitrary actions that Justice Alexandre de Moraes of Brazil's Federal Supreme Court has been carrying out single-handedly under the excuse of protecting democracy. We are witnessing the exact and expanded repetition of the modus operandi that was exposed globally by the Twitter file scandal. That mass of internal documents leaked by Elon Musk proved to the world that the social network was systematically forced by the Brazilian court to suspend the accounts of journalists, politicians, and citizens, as well as to delete critical content under absolute secrecy. The most disturbing part was that the platform was forbidden, under threat of imprisonment of its executives, from informing the user of the real reason for their virtual execution. Today, the greatest concern reported by the Latin American Internet Association and the Brazilian Chamber of Digital Economy is that, navigating in uncharted waters without objective criteria, the networks take drastic measures of preventive censorship just to avoid being criminalized or shut down in the national territory. And it's exactly the same punitive and interpretative closed-door pattern that we saw being applied with full force against former President Jair Bolsonaro, where the rules of the game are shaped retrospectively according to the target they want to hit. Brazil has been turned into the global testing ground for censorship, an open-air laboratory where tactics for annihilating opponents are carried out by the stroke of the state's pen, blatantly ignoring the fact that the United States, driven by Republican fury, is willing to commercially crush any nation that dares to threaten the hegemony of its tech companies, responding with destructive force to every step Brazil takes toward digital totalitarianism. And this is very serious. And it points to an irreversible civilizational abyss, because we are witnessing in real time and with frightening passivity the accelerated transformation of our country into the new Cuba of the hemisphere. I'm not talking about an economic collapse on a Caribbean scale happening tomorrow morning, although mass impoverishment is only a matter of time, mathematically speaking, with the escalation of surcharges. But I'm talking about the ideological purpose, the suffocating political pressure, and the macabre long-term alignment. Today's Brazil is replicating brick by brick the architecture of the Great Firewall of the Chinese Communist Party. It is brutally pushing our territory out of the Western sphere of influence with the sole purpose of sheltering under the protective wings of Beijing. The engineering of silence that Brasilia is implementing is not a diplomatic accident, a misstep, or an isolated communication failure. It is a diplomatic project a power structure meticulously designed to shield the regime from public scrutiny and from the truth. And it is precisely because he recognizes this tectonic geopolitical movement that on July 16, the influential Senator Marco Rubio led a high-level strategic summit in Washington, bringing together diplomatic and intelligence representatives from 61 allied countries. The announcement that came out of that closed-door meeting room is a Category 5 storm warning for the Brazilian political and legal elite. Rubio designed and signed a new aggressive visa restriction policy, aiming the economic and diplomatic cannon directly at far-left governments and agents who carry out what American intelligence now classifies as state terrorism. The directive is cold and lethal. Any institutional actor, judge, politician, or lobbyist who uses physical attacks, character assassination campaigns, systematic judicial persecution, or state coercion to silence freedom of expression. And pay attention to this: limiting political opposition, sabotaging electoral processes, and altering democratic outcomes. Will have all ties to the Free West summarily and permanently severed. We are talking about a retaliation machine that destroys passports, triggers the Treasury Department to freeze dollar assets, banks, international transit, and isolates authorities on the global stage, turning them into untouchable pariahs. And when the Brazilian president mocks the White House, saying that Trump is jealous of China, he is sealing the economic fate of an entire nation out of pure and irresponsible diplomatic arrogance. The political establishment and the old national press are in absolute and complicit silence about the seriousness of this siege by Washington, because they depend viscerally on this state censorship to survive the collapse of their own credibility. They try to stifle dense and independent geopolitical analysis all the time, limiting the reach of those who speak the truth. But we are an ironclad front that refuses the system's leash. Pay attention, I'm running for the eBest award in the political influencer category, and I want to show the globalist system the overwhelming strength that our community of elite analysts has. We are not a docile audience waiting for slaughter. We are the front line that analyzes the board before the enemy piece falls. Now I ask for your vote. The link is in the description and in the first pinned comment. Go there, make your choice, and show them the strength of our army. We went from the 44th position and now we're exactly in first place. But I need to be direct with you. We need to vote through the 28th or until next Tuesday, when qualification for the next phase takes place, where we'll be among the top 20 biggest influencers in Brazil, competing even with the left-wing crowd, with supporters of dictatorships, with communists who went to Iran to salute the dictator Ayatollah Khamenei. Yes, my friends, they're the ones we're fighting, and we have to win this. And to force the platform's algorithm to recognize and spread the full seriousness of this intelligence operation, breaking the bubble of suppression. Go down now to the comments section and leave your relentless verdict about this ongoing electoral maneuver. Type the phrases digital guillotine and preventive censorship. I repeat, digital guillotine and preventive censorship. Put that in the comments right now. Claim your territory, stand up to the narrative, and don't back down an inch in front of this machine, because the system works to silence those who don't bow down. But in the marketplace, your worst enemy is your own silence. Today, the most lethal currency in the world is attention. And what destroys an entrepreneur's soul the most is being absolutely the best at what you do, but still remaining invisible, losing ground and money to ridiculous dances and empty memes. I've been in that darkness before. After 15 years going head-to-head behind the scenes in radio and television, I understood that building unbreakable authority requires more than talent. It requires military strategy. The game today is purely about media. Look at Chimed and Havan stores. One is a pharmaceutical company and the other is a department store. Both of them tripled their sales the moment the owner understood they needed to become a media company. Your identity cannot be outsourced. The founder needs to put himself out there. The days of recording little cell phone videos with no authority and hoping to sell are over. The market demands military-level professionalism. And I'm recruiting entrepreneurs and professionals who are undeniably the best, but remain invisible because of the barrier they can't overcome. And what if you want to break through the bubble? Be recognized as a major authority in your field and have your business force the algorithm to work for you, with the impact in generating 50 million views every month like I do and monetized in dollars. On August 16th, I will host a fully in-person intensive face-to-face here in my studio. A hands-on session with a killer method to protect your authority and help you break through the bubble. But I want to be straightforward with the numbers. There are only 5 spots left. So the link is in the description, in the first pinned comment, and the QR code is showing on your screen. I'll say it again, 5 spots left and the steel door closes. And so you don't waste any more time looking for a good movie or series to watch, we created our channel with recommendations for movies and shows. Selected titles, no woke culture, no whining, just watch, enjoy, and have a good time with your family. Link in the description, in the pinned comment, and in the card that will appear on your screen. Now, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like on the video because it takes a lot of work to help shield your mind. I'm Shimon Oliveira. See you in the next video.